AOC is in panic mode. AOC thinks that if Donald Trump is elected president, then somehow she's going to jail. Now, here's the deal. I don't really think that she thinks that. I think that this is rhetoric. I think that they are trying to breed this kind of hysteria among the population. And, maybe she's got some people that follow her that will take this at face value and think, oh my gosh, she really could be going to jail. We've already seen Donald Trump in office for 4 years. I think the American public sees through this, but that's not stopping, ladies and gentlemen, those on the left who are trying to perpetuate this narrative. She's out there saying, I take him at his word when he says that he's going to round up people. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. Of course, rounding up people was actually talking about the immigration situation. But she says, I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. All right, you're not a journalist, AOC. And by the way, he used to call journalists out all the time. And last I checked, Jim Acosta from CNN is not in jail. She goes on to say, I feel like what we saw in his first presidency was an amuse-bouche to what his intentions are. He has learned from his mistakes of appointing professionals, and he will not make that mistake next time. Oh, my goodness. The problem with Biden is he actually doesn't appoint professionals. He puts Jennifer Granholm, former governor of Michigan, former MSNBC anchor in charge of energy policy. He's got over there on his economic team a guy who's not even an economist, but was a music major at Manhattan School of Music and went on to do social work at Columbia University. You see, that's the problem with Joe Biden. He actually has a bunch of schmoes who are not professionals. On the other hand, you're talking about Steve Mnuchin as Treasury Secretary, former Goldman Sachs guy, as opposed to the bureaucrat Janet Yellen, who wants to still sit there and tell you maybe it was transitory inflation. I'm sorry. No, Trump actually has real people who actually understand markets, understand business, and might actually be able to get something done. Unlike the guy who's in office right now. Anyway, I want to go to these comments because they're so outrageous. She made them on this podcast with this woman who used to be kind of a big deal tech reporter and somehow now just does politics. Go figure. Maybe it rates better. Anyway, let's go and listen. It's an audio clip to AOC worried about what happens to her and her future under Donald Trump's presidency.
What happens to you if Donald Trump wins? What do you do? What's your first move?
It sounds nuts, but I wouldn't be surprised if this guy threw me in jail.
Really?
He's out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
He did his whole first campaign around lock her up. This is his motto.
Oh, he didn't say that, He said he didn't say that. Teasing.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I take him at his word. I take him at his word. I take him at his word when he says that he's going to round up people. I take him at his word when he threatens journalists. I take him at his word. I feel like what we saw in his first presidency was an amuse-bouche to what his intentions are. He has learned from his mistakes of appointing professionals, and he will not make that mistake next time.
Okay. So she's worried she's going to jail. Hillary Clinton might have been worried about that too for 2 seconds. Remember he promised her in the 2016 debate after she said, it's a good thing he's not president. And he laughed and said, yeah, because you'd be in jail. Anyway, he never did send her to jail. Maybe that was the mistake. Maybe he actually should have followed through on some of those things. I talked to him at the time, and you know what he said? He said, Trish, look, we're still the United States of America. We're not a banana republic. We're not some crazy Latin American country that just throws everyone who used to be in politics into jail after the fact. Well, lo and behold, that's what we've become, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to the left. They're out there saying, oh, he's going to do this, he's going to do that. But they've actually already done it all. Oh, he's gonna go after me for this, that, and the other. 91 counts, 4 criminal, a mugshot, and now, today, the threat of jail. As we speak, Donald Trump is having some kind of Zoom call to try and sort of plead his case alongside his lawyer for a less harsh punishment in this 34 guilty count coming out of New York City. In a trial that really felt like much of a kangaroo court, right? Remember here, they had a misdemeanor at most, a financial misdemeanor, going back years. And then they turned that somehow into a felony conviction. Yet they couldn't actually decide on what the conviction was. I mean, it's the most bizarre thing that I have ever seen. Now, whether or not the appeals court overturns it, I will say this. I think you've got a very heavy politicized situation, even on the appeals court. This is one that might have to go all the way to the Supreme Court of the United States of America. And isn't that scary? I mean, to think that this is where we are. And when people talked about a constitutional crisis, I think we got it. I think we're getting to it. So she's all worried that she's going to wind up in jail. I can tell you, I don't actually think that's the concern, AOC. I think the real concern is, what are you guys going to do to everybody else to try and stamp out MAGA? I mean, how many times have we heard Joe Biden say MAGA's bad? It's not the Republicans, it's MAGA. Well, I'm sorry, 75 million people voted for Donald Trump. And you got half the country that's still maybe even more than half the country that's going to vote for him this time around. So, Joe, that's not playing.